After 7 hours of questioning, the killer is spent. The fate of 3 women made manifest. One question remains: why?
You fucking sick, Tony? Now lie down. You'll be sick.
Common sense would tell you that.
Will we call your doctor?
Rejection. Right? His wife says, I'm leaving. He can't deal with it, so he killed her. His girlfriend says, I'm leaving. He can't deal with it, he killed her.
I know, go ahead and say it. Leave me the fuck alone!
He doesn't even know. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question.
Got the teardrops in my eyes or what?
In the fall of 2000, James Hicks leads detectives here to a house set back in the woods. As Vance Tibbetts watches, a forensic team pulls his sister's remains from a shallow grave nearby. A few feet away, police find the skull of Hicks' first wife, Jenny Sear Hicks. The next day, in a patch of woods upstate, the body of Hicks is unearthed. The investigation is complete. All that remains is sentencing. On December 4th, a serial killer is for the cameras.
Mr. Hicks, what did Aunt Lynn mean to you?
Inside the room the family is gathered, the killer sits at the defense table, seemingly at ease. The judge hands down two concurrent life sentences for the murders of Tony Tower and Lee Willett, and 55 years for the assault on June Bates in Lubbock. After 23 years, the killing is done. James Hicks' legacy of grief is complete. He expresses neither remorse nor an understanding of his crimes. The only certainty, it appears, is this. If James Hicks were released back into society, he would almost certainly hunt and kill again.
I said to him one day, I said, Jimmy, you need to spend the rest of your life in a prison, locked up. I said, because if you don't, another woman is going to die. And he looked at me and he said, you're right, I've come to realize that.
Decades-old homicide cases reopened. Cold case files next.
Six years later, his television set was found.
Early morning. In a ditch on the side of the road, a Navy sea bag has been doused with gasoline and set afire. A motorist stops to investigate. Inside the bag, he finds a body. Sheriff's Detective Sam Woodward is called to the scene.
Find a female, partially burned, apparently was stuffed in a duffel bag. The only thing that actually was showing that would indicate she was a white female was her legs.
The woman's body had been bound, hand and foot, and is clad only in a nightshirt. Martin Sauls is the Jasper County coroner.
It was a normal day up to that point in time, and what it ended up being was probably the most heinous crime that we had ever seen up to this point in time in Jasper County.
A normal human skull consists of 22 separate bones. The skull from Jasper County has been crushed into more than 120 separate fragments. Complicating the situation is the fact that large portions of the front teeth and surrounding bone are missing entirely. When Martin Soles reviews the autopsy report, he finds some of this material in the corpse's stomach and lungs.
She inhaled her own teeth. Once he beat her around the mouth and everything, she was still alive, and she actually swallowed and aspirated her own teeth.
The autopsy establishes the victim to be in her early to mid-20s and a recent mother. Who she is, where she came from, and how she wound up inside a duffel bag in Jasper County remains a mystery.
We could tell, she was a white female, but beyond that, there was no way to identify her because her face was just had been beaten flat.
The only thing we had was a white female that was apparently put in a duffel bag and dropped here on the side of the road and set afire. That's all we had.
Before Sam Woodward can begin to find his killer, he must discover the name of his victim. To that end, he sends the crushed bits of skull to the University of South Carolina. Ted Rathbun is a forensic anthropologist for the University of South Carolina. On November 16, 1989, Jasper County detectives ask him to give their Jane Doe a face.
My gut reaction to this is going to be a toughie. This was one of the most horrendous examples of trauma, both of the soft tissue and then later to find out all of the extensive damage to the underlying bone, which in and of itself became a real challenge.
Rathbun first sorts and classifies the fragments according to anatomical function. Then he begins to glue the skull back together.
We start by putting smaller pieces so that we have larger pieces, and then taking the larger reconstructed pieces and finally fitting them together. So that it's not totally like trying to do a three-dimensional white horse in a snowstorm sort of a puzzle.
Rathbun's puzzle, however, does not have all of its component pieces. Bits of bone and teeth swallowed by the victim during the attack were never recovered during the autopsy. Rathbun must fill in the blanks.
One area here beneath the nose was missing and was never recovered. And unfortunately, one of the key features for indicating how far out your nose projects was also not there. It was sort of a compromise or a guesstimate on the initial attempts to get how far out the nose would project.
40 hours after he picked up the first fragments of bone, Rathbun's reconstruction is almost complete. He believes the Jane Doe to be most likely of European descent and calls in a sketch artist, Roy Pascal, for the next phase of the job, turning this reconstructed skull into a face.
We routinely do a three-dimensional reconstruction, which involves clay. But in this case, the skull was so fragile that it would not sustain the weight of the clay. We're not able to do that.
Instead of clay, Pascal relies on pins. These markers plot the average tissue depth for a European female in 32 different locations on the skull. Then the skull is photographed, and Roy Pascal goes to work creating the face.
For the artist, you have to make sure that you stay within the restraints of what the science tells you. You can't add something just because it's more pleasing. You have to render it in an artistic style, but based on the information that strictly comes from the scientific information.
Blending science with art, Pascal sketches for 40 hours. When he is done, this is the resulting likeness. How close is it to the actual Jane Doe? Only time will tell.
It's not as if it's done on a whim. It's kind of like the ninth inning, 2 outs. You really don't have a whole lot to lose by giving it your best shot.
Pascal's sketch is sent across the country, but fails to spark a lead. In time, the case goes cold. The men and women who are working the file may not yet know the name of their Jane Doe, but they respect her memory.
We buried her out in Richmond Cemetery. We put her in a casket and we took her out and we buried her in a section of the cemetery here in town reserved for individuals unknown origin.
We wanted to find out what happened. We wanted to find out who she was. All along, I felt like if we found out who she was, that would give us the key that opens the door to find out what happened to her.
But We return 80 miles to the northeast. The city of Charleston, South Carolina, offers up some clues about Jasper County's Jane Doe.
If you, like many people, are covered by both Medicare and your state's Medicaid, here's something important to know. Now you could get even more health benefits than you already have. It's the United Healthcare Dual Complete Plan. To find out if you or someone you care about is eligible,
23.
Call now to talk with us. We can explain it all and answer your questions. Medicaid gives you benefits, and Medicare gives you some too. But a dual complete plan can add even more benefits and features compared to original Medicare. You'll have lots of doctors and hospitals to choose from. $0 copays on all
God
covered
damn it.
prescriptions, including brand names. And depending on where you live, you could enjoy other benefits too, like more dental care and rides to and from your doctor or pharmacy. Most plans even give you up to $300 a month to help pay for covered over-the-counter products, groceries, and new this year, utility bills. And best of all, with this plan, there's no extra cost to you. Remember, if you have Medicare and Medicaid, chances are you could get a dual complete plan. So call now to talk with us. Our agents are available to help. Confusing. United Healthcare can straighten things out. And with over 40 years of experience, you can count on us to be there for you with a dual complete plan.
Hello. Welcome to the Missing Utility. Your call may be monitored or recorded for quality assurance.
Jesus.
To report an urgent issue with your service, such
No.
as a gas odor or downed wire, please say yes or no.
No.
Name menu. You can say payment, billing information,
Representative.
start or stop. You confirm you want to speak with a representative, right?
Yes.
Please hold while transferring. Your call may be monitored or recorded for quality assurance. Hi, this will be after you.
Yes, I haven't received a bill lately, so I'd like to know what my bill is.
Okay, I would be happy to help with that. What is the address that we're
For
looking at?
Xfinity?
1302 West Boone, apartment L, 99201,
Perfect, thank you. And what is your first and last name?
Doug Jensen.
Good. Looks like the next bill should be going out tomorrow for you, and that hasn't generated with how much it'll be yet.
Okay, can you tell me what it is right now?
It hasn't generated, so I don't know how much it'll be yet.
Alrighty. Alright,
Okay, that'll be sent out tomorrow for you.
alrighty.
What bill is that?
Is there anything else I can help with?
No.
You talking about the Xfinity bill?
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Alright,
Are you talking about the Xfinity bill?
no power bill.
Club.
Power bill, Joe.
Okay.
I gotta use your phone number when I call on cable bill.
I think it's in my email right now. I think it said $65.
Anthropologists for help. A team reconstructs the crushed skull and
I'll
produces.
go do it when I get done here.
The sketch is circulated around the country but produces no leads. Meanwhile, 80 miles away in Charleston, South Carolina, a young woman is gone missing. In a housing complex just north of Charleston, an uneasy peace prevails. United States Navy Chief Petty Officer Michael Pallon lives here with his girlfriend, 24-year-old Anita Hunt. There's his relationship steeped in violence.
Verbally vomited on her daily. There was definitely physical violence. Christmas Day, he was upset because she was crying that she missed her children. and backhanded her in the mouth and broke two of her teeth.
Kathy French is Annie Tahan's best friend. In October of 1989, she watched as Annie gave birth to the couple's first child. This, despite the fact that Michael Pollan was still married to another woman. Less than a month later, Kathy French gets a phone call from Annie.
She called me real early one morning. She was screaming into the phone. I mean, hysterically screaming. I didn't know it was her. She was screaming, come get me, come get me. And I'm like, hold on. I really couldn't understand her. And she was begging me. Come get her. I asked her what was wrong, and she said, Michael's going to take the baby away from me. Can you please come get me? And I couldn't go.
Kathy French lives on the Virginia coast, more than 400 miles from Charleston. She arranges to wire Annie money and to pick her up at the bus station. Annie Tahan agrees to the plan and promises to call back by the end of the week.
She never called back. For like a week. I called her like every half hour. There was never any answer. And I called one Friday, and the phone had been disconnected. I never spoke to her again.
Initially, Kathy French believes Annie might have simply bundled up her infant and fled from an abusive boyfriend. That theory dies a quick death when French gets on the phone with Michael Pollan's mother.
His mother told me that she had the baby, and at that minute, the minute she said it, I got really cold because I knew something had happened to her.
Pollan's mother tells French that Michael Pollan is serving a tour of duty in Hawaii, and that, according to Michael, Annie had left him and left her newborn behind.
From the minute I hung up that phone talking to her, I knew that something had happened to her, that something bad had happened to her, because she would not have done that.
Kathy French is convinced that her friend has been murdered. She reaches out for help to the Berkeley County Sheriff's Department.
I'm telling them the story. I'm saying, look, this is not right. This is not her behavior. This is not the kind of person she is. I never go more than 3 days at a time without hearing from her. I mean, never.
She was persistent. Miss French was very persistent. And it was enough that, and I can't really explain why, but it was what our terminology here is a gut feeling that there's something more to this.
Berkeley County Detective Pamela Lee picks up the Annie Tahan case. She begins her investigation by digging into Annie's relationship with Michael Pollan. It is a search that takes her to the coast of New England. Annie Tahan met Michael Pollan here in the town of Portland, Maine. For a time, they occupied a flat with Annie's 3 children from a prior marriage. From the beginning, the relationship was difficult.
There was an evening when Michael had come home and found that Annie was at a pub, and he was upset. Well, her 3 children, along with the babysitter, were at the apartment, and a mysterious fire broke out in the apartment. End result, her 6-month-old daughter was burned in the fire.
Annie's 6-month-old perished in the blaze that consumed the apartment. Local authorities tell Lee they suspected Michael Pollan, but had no evidence linking. Eventually, they dismissed the fire as being of unknown origin. 2 months later, Annie was living with her mother when a second mysterious fire broke out. Again, Michael Pollan was a suspect. Again, no charges were filed. The Portland incidents, however, are enough to get Lee thinking.
There was just so much suspicion there. I know I thought homicide.
Lee is convinced that Annie Tahan was murdered, and that somehow Michael Pollan was the cause of her demise. Despite her suspicions, 2 years of legwork scare up nary a trace of Tahan, dead or alive. Meanwhile, Kathy French arms herself with pencil, paper, and telephone, and conducts her own investigation.
I would like get up at like 6 in the morning. I'd put a pot of coffee on. I'd get my notebook, and I'd start at the top of the list and call all day long. I mean, all day long until it was time for me to go to work at 5 o'clock.
For more than 5 years, this is Kathy French's life, working the phones up to 8 hours a day. Coming home to begin her search for Annie Tahan anew.
I might sleep 2 hours. I'd wake up because I thought of something or forgot something to write down, and I'd be up again. My whole being, my whole day was just totally consumed with trying to find her.
Kathy French runs up phone bills in excess of $15,000. She reaches out to every significant law enforcement agency, hospital, and morgue on the East Coast, as well as every missing persons center in the entire country. With each phone call comes one question. Have they seen or heard of anyone matching Annie's description? Each time, the answer is no. Each time, Kathy French picks up the phone and tries again.
Not for 1 minute did I pick it up. Because I knew something bad had happened to her. I knew it.
When we return, the U.S. Navy is enlisted in the hunt for Annie Tahan, and 2 cold cases become one.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Lawson from Colonial Federal. Word is spreading fast about our guaranteed life insurance plan for people aged 50 and over. With rates starting as low as $9.95 per month, it's designed to fit your budget, even if you're on a fixed income. And you know what? Your rate is locked in for life and will never go up. Your coverage can never be canceled either, even if your health changes. Just keep paying